Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Okay. And we got a couple little more messages we got here. This show is brought to you by BetUS.com. 125% off your first 3 deposits, 30 years experience, secure site, wagering for all sports, including during the games and futures. SeatGeek provides you the best prices on sports and music events, game tickets, and concerts. Use NSS promo code to get $20 off your first ticket. Keep using the NSS promo code when purchasing tickets for great deals in the future. In Fanatics at nessp.info for your favorite teams, sportswear. Click on the link, and while you're there, check out our national streaming sports merchandise. All right, folks. Well, let me get us up from underneath the veil here. Good morning, everyone. I know, right? This is Mac, Jack, and J-Chain, James Martin, the Sports Memories show here. Of course, sports memories of the people, the places, the events that happened way back when. And to start us off, I guess we'll go with Jack with the 69 Mets.
Yeah. I mean, that's a warm, fuzzy intro, Mac, to get it like going right off the bat. I mean, it's like not even a warm up to that. But I just want to praise our producer for those iconic athletes on the screen. I mean, when we have to lead into the show, we have certain pictures of athletes, and I didn't fully absorb it until this moment. And I'm looking Jim Brown, Wilt Chamberlain, Gordie Howe. I mean, these guys were bigger than life within their sport. I mean, there's been so many great athletes, but there's just a select few who their impact was incredible. If there was a room full of Hall of Famers and one of these iconic athletes walked through the door, the whole room full of Hall of Famers would stop and look in awe. That's, the select few I'm talking about, that were on the screen. So good job by our producer doing that. The 1969 New York Mets, talk about a legendary team. I was thinking of the other day, fellas, of all the team sports, which single championship was the biggest of all in all the sports? Now, it depends the city you're in. I understand that. For New Orleans, it would be the Saints, with the hurricane. But let's be honest about it. If you talk about the big scale of things outside of New Orleans, that's just another of many championships. It doesn't rate quite, anywhere close to the top. There's select few championships that reverberate. They go even outside of their city, and they become truly legendary. I mean, you might take the 1980 USA hockey team, what it meant in the United States, the way everyone got into the wave of emotion. You might take the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers with Jackie Robinson, a legendary team when they finally got over the top and won their only championship. Then they later moved to Los Angeles where they won several, of course. But there was, and this is coming from a Yankee fan, there was nothing to compare to the 1969 New York Mets. Nothing at all. It was a story that if you scripted, it would be a Hollywood thing to script with a screenwriter. When they came into existence in 1962, they were like a comedy act. They were the lovable losers. And even though they were losing and they were horrendous, people loved them. And the reason people loved the 1962 New York Mets is because they never should have come into existence to begin with. The reason it came into existence was because after the 1957 season, the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to Los Angeles because they wanted to get a new stadium. And the city was willing to give them a new stadium, but in Queens. So their logic was, how can we be called the Brooklyn Dodgers if we're playing in Queens? Never mind later on, how can the New York Giants and New York Jets be called that by playing in New Jersey? I guess there could have been a way to still call them the Brooklyn Dodgers, even though they would have been in Queens, and then maybe transition things, and maybe played a couple of games in Brooklyn a year just to keep the name. I don't know, as far as that goes. So 5 years after the Dodgers left, and they broke the hearts of the people in Brooklyn, absolutely broke the hearts of the people in Brooklyn. I mean, I wasn't old enough to be any type of fan. So the thing is, being a Yankee fan coming from Brooklyn, I don't know how, had I been around that time, who knows whether I would have been a grown up a Brooklyn Dodger fan or a Yankee fan. You never know for sure. The Mets come in 1962. So what they did, they didn't go for young talent. They went for all the big name players who were through. They were at the end of the line. They had nothing left. They got Gil Hodges. They got Duke Snider. They even got Yogi Berra for a couple of games, over there. And they had funny names like Choo Choo Coleman and this and that. And they won 40 games and lost 100, that year, 122, something like that. But they got the worst record in baseball history, and they were awful. Then over the next 7 years after that, they got marginally better. And at the end of the 1968 season, they actually weren't that bad. They were slipping under the radar. They were 73 and 89, which for the Mets, that was great. But the mindset was they're complete losers, and no one expected anything of them at the 1969 season. Their manager, Gil Hodges, a Brooklyn Dodger legend, talked optimistically about the 1969 season. He said, I think if we really play well and we get it all together, we can win 85 games. Think of it. He was thinking they could go 85 and 77 because they were starting to get some young talent that hadn't blossomed yet. So now the 1969 season begins, and the Cubs, led by Leo Durocher, former Giant Dodger manager, Leo the Lip, one of the biggest villains or one of the biggest personalities in baseball history, is leading the Cubs. And as the summer comes along, the Cubs have a big lead. The Cubs start to falter. The Mets are winning. And then a little omen, to help the Mets happen when they're playing the Cubs. A black cat runs in front of the Cubs dugout, kind of as a sign. How it got there, no one ever knows, and then scampers away. But the Cubs went downhill, and the Mets went on this magic ride that made the summer and into September so much fun. And the closest the Mets came to a slump, they lost 3 games in a row in September. And then the third of those 3 games, they got no-hitted by Bob Moose. But then they continued winning again. and they win the division by 8 games. And people are going crazy when they win the division. At that time, when you clinched, the fans could run out onto the field. It was glorified fans running onto the field, and they would tear the field up, mob the players. I hate that. That's got to stop. I don't know, does that exist in basketball now, or could they keep the fans away? But that's an absolute no-no, entering the field. They tear the field up, they go crazy, it's a miracle. So now there's a playoff system. At that time, you had to play one round to get to the World Series, and that was the first year you had to play a playoff round. Before that, in baseball history, if you had the best record in the National League, American League, you automatically went to the World Series. So it was easier to get there as long as you had the best record in the American and National League. So the Mets are playing one round in the playoffs to see who goes to the World Series against Hank Aaron's Atlanta Braves. And the Mets beat them 3 in a row. Now the Mets in the World Series against the Baltimore Orioles, who'd beaten the Twins 3 in a row. And the Orioles had won 108 games during the season. They were considered a powerhouse. The Robinson guys, Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Boog Powell, Mark Belanger, great defensive shortstop, Paul Blair, great defensive center fielder, outstanding pitching over there. Davey Johnson, who'd later become Met manager, ironically, and they'd win a World Series with Davey Johnson. 1986 was their second baseman, power hitting second baseman. They have pitchers, Jim Palmer, Mike Cuellar, Dave McNally. I mean, they were loaded, this Oriole team. And to show you how good this Oriole team was, the following year they'd win the World Series. And the year after that, they'd lose in 7 games in the World Series after getting off to a 2-0 lead. But they're playing the Mets 69. Game 1, Orioles win 4-1. They won pretty easily. The Mets weren't threatening that game. Orioles went into the series as a favorite, but the Mets won this magic carpet ride. They win the following game 2-1. Then there's game 3 of the World Series. I happened to be at that game. I played hooky from school, and I'm sitting upstairs, standing room seat, but I'm actually sitting on the steps, upstairs. Tommy Agee makes 2 tremendous catches, tremendous in that game. And he also hits a home run. And the Mets middle reliever who came in the game, was Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan, he hadn't become the Nolan Ryan that would later pitch, 7 no-hitters and be one of the most dominant pitchers for the next couple of decades. But then he was just a middle reliever with a lot of potential. And he gets in there. So the Mets up 2-1. Then to show you the way when you have momentum going, where everything goes in your favor, game 4, the Mets win 2-1. The winning run scores on a bunt by J.C. Martin in the 10th inning. He runs inside the baseline, and the ball hits him on the back, ricochets in the outfield, and the winning run scores. He should have been called out, J.C. Martin, because he was running inside the base path. The umpire said, well, he didn't intentionally, interfere with the ball. It doesn't matter. The rules are the rules. So the Mets got to win, and that game's remembered in large part for Ron Swoboda making this great diving catch, okay? In the 9th inning with the Mets up 1-0, even though that catch had tied the game, the fans were beside themselves in disbelief over what a great catch Swoboda made. So the Mets up 3-1, game 5 at Shea Stadium. They want to win because if they lose, the next 2 would be at Baltimore. And Baltimore just wants to get back to their home stadium where they feel they'll right things. Orioles get off to a 3-0 lead. The Mets battle back. Don Clendenin hits a 2-run homer. And Al Weiss ties it at 3-3. And then the Mets score a couple of runs in the 8th, and they win that game 5-3. And they win the World Series. But when you look at the Met team individually, how great a team it was, it's questionable. You look at catcher, you had Jerry Grody there, and Jerry Grody was tremendously underrated in the sense, and he was a great defensive catcher. He was so good defensively that Johnny Bench once remarked, if Jerry Grody was on the Cincinnati Reds, I'd be playing third base. Wow, I mean, that's an awesome compliment coming from Johnny Bench, showing his respect. But he didn't hit much. So the perception of Grody was he was okay, but nothing special because he didn't have a big bat. First base, the Mets had gotten Don Clendenin from the Pirates during the season. He platooned with Eddie Kranepool. Clendenin hit 3 home runs in the 4 games he played in the series. Kranepool actually hit a homer too. Clendenin was named MVP of the World Series for the 3 big home runs he hit. They were hitting big spots. But it really should have gone to Jerry Koosman. He won 2 games. He really should have gotten the MVP. But at that time, we paid more attention to the bats, the hitting, the offense, as opposed to the pitching. At second base, the Mets had Al Weiss there. They got him light hitting shortstop from the White Sox. I'm thinking for 1 second who platooned with him. Oh boy, I'm having a little brain cramp. It'll come back to me, but it's shortstop Bud Harrelson. He didn't platoon with anyone. Really good glove. He hit just well enough. He was very solid in the shortstop position. Third base, Wayne Garrett, Ed Charles platooned. Gil Hodges, the manager, was a big fan of platooning unless a player was so good. He wouldn't platoon him. In right field, he platooned Ron Swoboda and Art Shamsky. Center fielder was Tommy Agee. When the Mets got him, they got him when his performance had been slipping with the White Sox. Did he kind of regain his status with the Mets? In the left field, they had an outstanding left field in Cleon Jones. And of course, the big 3 starting pitchers were Tom Seaver, Jerry Koosman, and Gary Gentry. At that time, teams would sometimes go with a 3-man rotation. It's not like today, like 5-man rotation. Pitchers threw a lot more pitches. The mindset was better. They weren't so timid. In this day and age, I'm going to tell you guys flat out, these organizations don't know what they're doing. They have 100 pitch count. They pull guys after 85, 90 pitches. Let him throw 150 pitches if he's good. Give him an extra day's rest in the rotation if the pitcher's a little tired. That's the way you do it. You don't cut his pitch count short. I mean, it's dumb the way they're doing things today. And mark my words, it's eventually going to change. You're going to see how stupid they are today down the line. And they'll start going back to the way things used to be doing. Mac, remember, there are cases of pitchers throwing 200 pitches in the past. Warren Spahn, Juan Marichal went into a 16-inning pitching duo. They went the full way. You know what I mean? And they continue, on and on. But whatever. So the Miracle Mets, but when they won the World Series, guys, New York City was turned upside down. It was the craziest thing going on. And I think it caught on nationwide because they were known like truly as the Miracle Mets. People love stories of a chronic loser that all of a sudden can rise from the bottom all the way to the top. It kind of gave everyone that crazy hope. They were the ultimate underdogs, those Mets. And for them to win the World Series, was like one of the great stories in sports history. And of all championships, I think that's the one with the highest profile of all.
Okay, Jack. I think, let's go to James first, and he's got a unique person he's talking about today. I think he played left tackle, if I'm not mistaken.
Blindside, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Anthony Munoz. I wanted to pivot a little bit from some of the great players that we normally talk about, whether it be a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, or some basketball player. Great. Just somebody that goes unnoticed, but quietly just like great. Again, I'm almost 50, and I wasn't really into offensive tackles. The prize positions were running backs and quarterbacks and wide receivers and linebackers and DBs. And I knew who Anthony Munoz was. I just like, wow, this guy was just dominant. 6'6", 278. He went to USC from 76 to 79. And early on in his career, he got injured. He was injury riddled. He was great coming out of high school. He got into college, but he had a lot. If there's one slight on him early on, was that he was injury prone, and he missed they played a part of 3 Rose Bowls, but 4 bowls total is from freshman to senior season. But he missed 2 of those, one in his freshman year and one in his junior year. And the last 2 seasons, he only played a total of 16 games. And there was a question about whether or not he could cut it at the next level. Well, let me say this. In his senior season, he got injured, and he said this out of his own mouth. He got injured the 3rd play of the first game of the season. And so he missed all the regular season, but they got to the Rose Bowl without him. And this is under John Robinson. And believe it or not, there's another coach that was there, assistant coach that was there, and that was Pete Carroll. And I was just amazed to even recognize that. Obviously, I didn't even know he was a coach early on there before he went back. He got to play in that Rose Bowl with that team, and that team had a stable of backs, a freshman by the name of Marcus Allen, and of course their Heisman Trophy winner and Charlie White. That was and they played against The Ohio State University that was undefeated at the time. And that game it was a great game. It was tied for 10-10 at the first half. And then looks like Ohio State's going to take the game by the horns. And they were up 16-10, I believe. And look, the last drive of the game, they gave the ball to Charlie White. But Charlie White had a 247-yard game, and a lot of it, I mean, a good portion of it came on that last drive with 1 minute and 32 seconds left. But when I watched the film, the main reason that Charlie got a lot of those yards was running behind the blocking of Anthony Munoz. I saw some of this guy was pancaking people all over the place, man. And Charlie, like I said, ended up with 247 yards. They go down, scored a touchdown, and they win the game 17-16. And after that, he was being scouted by some teams, particularly Forrest Gregg from the Bengals came to visit and check him out. And he said he asked him he worked him out for like 2 hours. He asked him to do a couple of maneuvers to see what he can do. And he said he would go around him. He played defensive end against him. And he said he did some moves on him, and he tried to fake him out. And Munoz hit him in the chest, pushed him down, and his head hit the ground. And he said he freaked out. He picked him up. He said, "I'm sorry." And the coach is like, No, that's great. And so they go on to select him 3rd overall in the first round. And he started automatically. And man, I mentioned earlier that he was injury prone during his college years. Out of 12 seasons, he only missed 3 games. So he whatever it was he was dealing with early on, it had no effect on him in the pros. And man, I watched some film of him going up against the likes of like Lyle Alzado, Bruce Smith, Lawrence Taylor, the guy who revolutionized the linebacker position. And he held his own against these guys. Not only just held his own, he actually played great. I know we talked earlier, Jack, and you said we talked about these guys, and it's not really exceptional, the rules to talk about linemen, because there's just there's a great player once in a while, a generational talent like Anthony Munoz that comes along, and you see a guy, you notice him, even though when your eyes look at the field, you're looking at the running back, you're looking at the wide receivers, because they're more exciting plays. When I see something, when they show you the replay, because if you miss it, you see a guy like him just pushing guys down the ground. And he was quick. He was very quick with his first step. And this is a guy that blocked for Ken Anderson early on in his career. And he also blocked for Boomer Esiason. Now, we say blind side, but Boomer Esiason was a left-handed quarterback, so he really wasn't on his blind side. But, man, it was just such a great thing to see, to bring back. I watched him back then, and to look at some of the highlights and listen to some of the stories about people that talked about him. This is a guy, he went to two Super Bowls. They didn't win them, but he would go on to have a stellar career. He ended up being Man of the Year in 91. He was a 9-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler, the 1980s All-Decade team, and he was the 75th anniversary team in the 100. He was number 12 in the 100th anniversary team. He's in the Cincinnati Ring of Honor, and he also was an All-Pro in the national championship. And another thing to mention, he also baseball was his first love. He played for one season. He played baseball with them with USC, and played third base, and he also played pitcher.
Yeah, like you mentioned Anthony Munez, and you make a good point. How many offensive linemen in our lifetime are truly, truly great? I'm not talking about very, very good. I don't want to hear names of guys who are very, very good. I mean, guys who are great, who you would put against the best pass rushers on the other team, and they would more than hold their own. Chances are they would keep them in check for the most part. I mean, those guys are invaluable. I mean, we think of Anthony Munez, maybe Jonathan Ogden. Is he one? Is he as good as Anthony Munez? It's debatable. Joe Thomas, Zach Martin, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so few of it. Maybe I said, it's all debatable, but there's so few of them. Conversely, I can name another position on offense, wide receiver, and I could probably name 30, 40 guys. I mean, my 30th guy who I take would get the job done nearly as good as the first guy, but not so on the offensive line. I mean, these guys, it's so few truly great offensive linemen. You get a lot of great wide receivers, I hate to say it, who are at least close to being great. I could, name them. Same with running backs, even though Mac's going to go over that. Even quarterbacks, you get more quality backs in the long run, perhaps. But maybe I should take that back with quarterbacks. But we have a handful of great legendary quarterbacks. We could maybe name who played in our lifetime, maybe 15 of them or something if we want to get technical. But then again, the list becomes shorter and shorter after we get done. Brady, Manning, Montana, Elway, Marino, a few more. But these offensive linemen, how many Anthony Munez's are there around, guys? I mean, how many guys in this class? I mean, it's less than the fingers on one hand.
That's why I would say he's in the rare era of just great players, period. I mean, you wouldn't just categorize him as an offensive lineman. As a reason that he's number 12 on the all-time great players, period. So, I mean, yeah, it's of 100 players.
All right. So let's see if we can get some excitement in the show now after we got done talking about an offensive tackle.
Oh, man.
Hey, you're just upset, Matt, because the Giants have been drafting these offensive tackles highly, like Evan Neal, I think number 5 and number 7 overall in the draft, and it hasn't been working out. Had the Giants hit on Anthony Munez for one of those early picks, that would have been a big, big difference maker.
Yeah, Thomas ain't bad, number 78. I think he'll be a good one.
No, he's okay. No, he's good, but he's not. But who's an Anthony Munez? I mean, come on.
Yes.
The Jets made a move that was a little similar. I just want to say, when they bypassed Matt Leinart when he came out of the draft, people thought they were going to take him at number 4. They took the Brickashaw Ferguson, who turned out to have an outstanding career. He wasn't Anthony Munez, but he had a heck of a good career. So that pick was validated.
Well, probably my favorite offensive tackle was Jackie Slater of the Rams. I mean, 18 years.
Yeah. He was great.
Very good. John Hannah with the Patriots, not bad either.
Hannah was outstanding. Yeah, yes. Hannah was outstandanding.
All right. So, again, let's start with Earl Campbell, guys. Talk about a punishing runner. I mean, let's go back. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. Yes. College playoffs coming up. Let's see. But anyways, MVP in 1979, offensive player in 1978 or 9, 78 and 80, sorry. He had 3 years in a row, guys, that he ran for 1,700 yards. It's unheard of. NFL Offensive Player of the Year 3 years in a row. His thighs were bigger than most men's waists, and powerful. Didn't back to. I mean, I would have hated to have been a defensive back trying to tackle that man. I mean, that guy was just a load. They went to 3 playoffs, and if you remember Jack, the head coach back then was Bum Phillips, right? And I think Dan Pastorini was a quarterback. Billy White Shoes Johnson, a great returner with his dance and his white cleats, and played receiver a little bit, but mainly he was a return guy. But Earl Campbell was really all they had as a weapon. So of course, after so long, he's going to get worn out. I can't hear you, Jack.
He was their main weapon. You just mentioned Billy White Shoes Johnson. He was a pretty good receiver.
Yes.
Campbell was the man, but Campbell was the guy. Yeah.
So they kind of wore him out, and if you could catch him before he got full steam ahead, you could stop him. So he ended up, rushing for 9,000. Yeah, 9,407 yards, 4.3 rushing average. So
7 years.
Yes, 7 years. So he was a very good back, and again, if he was on a better team, maybe
very good back. He was a great back, Mac. If I had to compare him to someone today, I would say he was a little better than Derrick Henry. We're talking about Derrick Henry in his prime. He might be in his prime now, Derrick Henry. That's debatable. But he's a little better because Campbell can unleash a long run a little better than Derrick Henry can. Derrick Henry is a great grinder. Campbell was a great grinder. But Campbell, break loose a little more than Derrick Henry, I thought. I thought he's slightly better, but that's debatable.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick Henry did break a 99-yard touchdown run just recently, so Campbell would seem to do it more. To break a long run. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I have to say, Derrick Henry is a different style runner. I mean, obviously he's taller, but like Jack said, Max said, the guy was just like a monster when he ran. I mean, he had speed to go with that. I have an anecdote here. I was about 4 years old. This was in '79 that year. I think was he MVP that year?
Yes.
I think he was in. Yes. I was 4 years old, and I was supposed to be in bed, and my parents were watching. I don't know if that was Monday night or whatever. It was a night game, and I could hear them screaming. And I went out to go sneak. I ran to the edge of the hallway, and so obviously there's one TV in the house. So I'm looking at the TV. And I see Earl Campbell, they showing a replay of that long run that he did on the sideline. And you just see the speed of this guy, this big, huge, massive guy who's running. I think he had to run about 4.5, 4.4. But he was just blowing by guys. And it's just like, it was sort of like the Bo Jackson before Bo Jackson. And I think he was a lot better than a lot of the guys that are here today. He just like Max said, he just got overused. But that was
against the Dolphins.
Yes.
James, what do you? No. The only night games that took place then were Monday Night Football. But listen here. Listen to what you just said. he's better than a lot of the guys today. Who is better than Campbell today? I mean,
well, you mentioned close. I mean, in comparison, I mean, I think he's better than all of them that's out today.
yeah, that's why, yeah. I mean, you have some excellent backs today. I'll give you an example who's having an Earl Campbell type season this year, what he means for his team. Saquon Barkley's been sensational this year with the Eagles. But Campbell would have those type of years for the Texans. But the Texans, the Houston Oilers, I'm sorry. The Oilers' problem was they had very good teams. They couldn't get over the top because they'd run into the steel curtain. You know, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that hurt their legacy why they could never get to a Super Bowl. We see that in sports all the time. You have great players. And imagine if Campbell had just one Super Bowl where he could have stood out. I mean, you know, you could say he's a legendary player like it is, but he truly would have been a legendary player. Because when we talk now about who are the greatest running backs of all time, or the greatest, one single greatest, Campbell's name doesn't come up as the greatest of all time. It comes up as one of the greatest. We talk Jim Brown, we talk about Barry Sanders, you know, etc. But if Campbell had just one Super Bowl where he had a chance to do what John Riggins did, and he was a Super Bowl MVP, there may have been some talk that Campbell was the best to ever do it.
Yeah. I mean, with the shortened career, because of shortened career, he only ran for 9,407 yards, 4.3 rushing average. So there's another guy that came out of college about the same time as Earl Campbell, totally different style. Ended up getting drafted by the Cowboys, Tony Dorsett. And a lot of before the draft, a lot of people thought he was too small. Very, very, very 5'11". I think he was like 186 pounds, and a lot of them didn't think he could take that beating. But he went on to play for 10 years. You know, he came out of he finished with second in the nation with 1,586 yards in 11 games. Led Pitt to the first winning season most of the time by a freshman in 1976. Let's go by that. 3-time All-American, 73, 75, 76. Finished with over 6,882 yards, then an NCAA record. Considered one of the greatest running backs in the history of college. As I said, they thought he would be, his durability was in question. Dallas selected him with the first overall pick. Dorsett signs a contract for $1.1 million, the first one. That was over 5 years. That was the first Cowboy to break the $1 million deal. He was in 1977. He ended up was named starter in the 10th game, so he wasn't named the starter right away. And first player to win college football championship and the Super Bowl in the next year when they beat the Denver Broncos 27-10. He rushed for 1,325 yards. And Dallas lost the following year to, of course, Pittsburgh in a great game, 35-31. In 81, he ran for 1,646 yards. 5 straight years with 1,000 yards rushing. And he did also have that 99-yard run against the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if you guys remember that when he was in yeah. And so Heisman, he was a Heisman 76, Super Bowl champion in 77. And he had a rushing yards of 12,739 yards. So, you know, he was on a better team than Earl Campbell. He was on the Dallas Cowboys with a lot of weapons. So they didn't just concentrate on Dorsett like they concentrated on Campbell. So that's about it for that, guys. Anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty busy weekend in sports. I don't know as far as sports memories. I mean, it's one thing you could always sports memories, but today especially, you look at the two games, Houston at Kansas City. Big game for even Kansas City. I hear Patrick Mahomes is playing with a high ankle sprain. And I don't know how risky that is. I trust that their medical staff knows what they're doing. But you have Carson Wentz as a backup. And guys, at the beginning of the season, I picked the Packers over the Texans in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to stick with that. It seems far-fetched. And Houston Texans, I think, begin their Super Bowl bid today. And all that matters is how the team is playing come playoff time. The regular season becomes unimportant. And I know I hear this talk, and Mac was laughing too at Keith Angle. Oh, the Chiefs are 12-1. They're winners until you dethrone the champ. That's utter nonsense. It's a new season. It doesn't matter what they did before. The mystique is in the mind of fans. The Texans are going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs today, beat them outright. Okay? And what that's going to mean come playoff time, the Texans are going to be primed come playoff time, especially their defense under DeMeco Ryan. And the Buffalo Bills, can they keep it going, this momentum, through the playoffs into the Super Bowl? That's the big question. We are seeing how this momentum thing can change by the end of the year. Even the NFC. I thought at one point the Lions looked like a lock to go to the Super Bowl. They were so head and shoulders above everyone else in the NFC. Now the Lions, and you're going to tell me injuries. I know that. All teams have injuries. Come on, guys. All teams.
Not like that.
Unless it's your starting quarterback.
Not like that.
And he's your main guy. If Josh Allen gets hurt, talk to me about injuries hurting the Bills. That would be devastating.
Jack, Detroit has 15 defensive guys out. Starters out. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Because the only way they can win is by outscoring them. That's the only way they're going to win anything. Detroit's not going to Super Bowl. They're not going.
Not if a lot of those players don't come back.
But now the Philadelphia Eagles have been annoyed at the favorites for now. But they're going to hit a bump in the road. They're not going to keep this going through the Super Bowl the way they're playing. They're not going to do it.
I picked the Eagles at the beginning of the season. I'm sticking with that.
Oh, you changed. You changed. You said the Saints first.
You like the Saints. You thought the Eagles were a tune-up game for the Saints.
It was a trap game, Jack. It was a trap game.
But no, I did pick the Eagles, and I'm going to stick with that, beating the Chiefs. And speaking of the Chiefs, I want to go back to what you said about the Houston, Oilers, the Texans beating them. There might be some validation to your claim because they have an excellent bookend defensive end in tandem in Danielle Hunter and in Will Anderson. But I want to go all the way back to when Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and he showed that he was still that guy. He was still that guy. He can win even with a high ankle sprain. You come at me, I'm still going to show you something different to beat you, and I'm pretty sure they can still do the same thing against Houston and win this game here and keep their lead for the top seed in the conference.
Oh, that is so important because if the Chiefs clinch the number one seed, they have to win 2 games to go to the Super Bowl. Both games have to go through Kansas City. If somehow Buffalo grabs the number one seed, Buffalo just has to win 2 games in Buffalo instead of 3 games, okay? And Buffalo wouldn't have to go into Kansas City or somewhere else. I mean, but Buffalo has a gimme this weekend. They're playing at home against New England. Nothing is a sure thing in the NFL, I know that. But this looks like as sure thing as could be, So if Kansas City loses, they're 1 game ahead of Buffalo, and Buffalo has the tiebreaker. So now there'd be 2 games left in the season after this weekend. Kansas City's under a lot of pressure. If Kansas City wins this game, they'll have a 2-game lead with 2 games to play, and they're pretty solid then to have home field. It's hard to imagine them losing both games, and we don't even know whether Buffalo is even going to try to win their final game of the season, figuring Kansas City has home field. We don't get a bye. We want to rest up players. They might not even play Josh Allen the full game, playing just enough maybe to keep them a little sharp. That's if it's the last game of the season, Mac. If Buffalo feels they're can't get home field, can't get the bye throughout the playoffs, they're not going to play hard to win the last game. I don't think so. At least it's all a mindset, but.
Whatever 2 teams make it to the Super Bowl, it should be an even playing field because they'll be playing inside of a dome in New Orleans, unless 2011, 2012 happens again when the lights go out, some voodoo thing happened, and then one team beats the other.
Yes, Super Bowls in New Orleans. In New Orleans, what are tickets going for? Have you heard or what?
I have no idea. I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty sure it's astronomical.
Yeah, I've never been to a Super Bowl game. I hate to say it. And I could tell you stories galore, the way I was supposed to go, this and that, but they're not pleasant stories to talk about. But I like to watch the Super Bowl game alone. Nothing with a Super Bowl party. I went to a Super Bowl party once. It was a disaster to go, crowded, people eating, people socializing, not knowing anything about football at all. They turn and they look at a play every once in a while. I just didn't enjoy it, and I would watch a Super Bowl game with someone else if they were hardcore. You made me do a show, Mac, me, you, and Jim Jeffcoat watching the game. Okay, but you and Jeffcoat obviously know football, so we were football guys. We were focused in on the game completely. But I'm not there for company, to eat and to socialize and to share some laughs. I'm into the game completely.
Sure.
Completely 100%.
So are we counting Baltimore out? With their last.
Yeah, tell me this. I don't understand something. Baltimore's favored, 6.5, 7 today? How can they be favored by that much over Pittsburgh, even if it's at Baltimore? I don't get it. I don't understand. Why are they favored by that much? What am I missing?
They're still streaky. It's just that they're not consistent, but when they're on, they're on. So, I don't know. Maybe they have something. I don't know what type of matchup they have. Maybe the Steelers don't have really. Is Watt out, or is Watt supposed to be playing?
I think he's playing.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what it could be to be that much.
Yeah, I normally I have a good idea what the odds are going to be without looking at them, approximately what it should be. And I know the odds makers are smart. They sometimes see a certain team that should be favored by a lot, and they don't favor them by that much because they feel there could be a bump on the road. Certain games are tricky, like Minnesota at Seattle. Very tricky game. I think the odds makers have the Vikings favored by 3 because the Vikings obviously have a better team, but the Vikings aren't looked at as truly a 12-2 type team. They're not looked at as being as good as their record is. So the odds are only 3, points, play. And it's at Seattle, and Seattle has potential to play a good game and win. So some odds are kind of like, you kind of wonder about. Then you have New Orleans at Green Bay. Can New Orleans keep it competitive? No one's thinking New Orleans could actually win that game. And this is why, like I mentioned, the Texans, why I think the Packers, why I picked to win the Super Bowl. And this is the difference between the Chiefs and I think the Packers this weekend. A team that's trending towards winning a Super Bowl in most cases, they're going to dominate a game like New Orleans at Green Bay. The Packers should dominate and win by at least more than 2 touchdowns, okay? But the way the Chiefs have been playing this year, yeah, they'll beat the Saints at home 20-13 and keep winning games like that. I like to see the teams that dominate, guys. I mean, that's just me. I know you need to win a hard game, close game once in a while, showing your character what it means. But last year was an aberration with the Chiefs. They weren't playing good at the end of the year, but they got it together because they're a very professional group. And maybe it happens again this year, but people are getting complacent with the Chiefs. They're 12-1, they're the champs. So you gotta take the title. You gotta knock the champion out. Come on.
I think the Chiefs are better than they were last year, talent-wise, right?
Yeah, a little bit. They are.
Yeah, I think they are. They picked up D. Hopkins?
Yeah, DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins.
And they
Yeah.
drafted the wide receiver out in the first round.
Yeah, number one
Look
there,
at
right?
this. Your number one pick, Kadarius Toney with the Giants. The Giants got rid of him. He went to. Did he go to Kansas City next?
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to Kansas.
Yeah, he's not
City.
there anymore.
The perfect situation. He couldn't even stick with the Super Bowl winners, and they wanted him to be part of it. They moved on from him, and now Cleveland gave him the boot. He did something
Yes.
over there.
I heard the Jets could use him.
No.
It's the one of,
Did you see last Sunday?
yeah.
Aaron
Hey,
Rodgers, Devontae Adams, what they were sensational together. It was a throwback to Green Bay. Devontae Adams restored order last Sunday. For those who are saying, "Oh, he's no longer top 10 receiver in the league," are you kidding me? The catches he made, how open he was, and then he would be dragging the tacklers with him once he caught the ball. He was sensational.
Jack, that reminds me of George Foreman in his 40s beating Michael Moore for the championship. That's about what they're gonna give one good game like that, and I don't think they're gonna give much more than that.
And Wilson had a good game too, Jack. I mean, all three of them played really well together that game. So you got to give you credit. But even so, what are you going to finish 7-10 when it's all over?
Oh, well, right now I looked at the draft order. The season ended. Of course, it won't be the same. There's 3 games left. Giants go 2nd overall. Jets go 8th. I don't know would there be a young quarterback available for the Jets, and you don't just take one with the 8th pick for the sake of taking one. I don't know what's going to be there at number 8. Now the Giants, wow. If the Raiders take Shedeur Sanders, what do the Giants do with their next pick? Is there a quarterback worth taking that high, or do you take the short thing in Travis Hunter and let him play both ways? But these idiots in the Giants front office wouldn't allow him to play both ways. They wouldn't allow him to
you think what's the percentage you think he should play both ways?
as much as he wants.
Oh no. In the pros? That Deion Sanders didn't even do that.
Because they didn't allow him. As long as he can be effective, that's what you allow.
It's a different game. It's a different game. The strength level that it can't sustain that. He'd be done in 3 years.
Then you don't play him both ways. Then you pull him back and you play him one way. But going with the mindset both ways, he doesn't have to play every play both ways. If the defense has been on the field a long time and you can see he's tired of something, you spot play him on offense or vice versa.
Exactly. I even heard Champ Bailey, one of the greatest in college two-way players, say, you're not going to do it at that level. You spot play him on offense and let him play defense, and that's really how it should be. He should come out as a defensive player, and you give him a couple packages here and there for offense.
No more than a couple of packages. You see his fatigue level, what he can handle. You're doing a pitch count on him. You're having a mindset. Oh no, you're going to get tired. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I understand with every play. Yeah, Chuck Benderek, I know it's 1960. He played in the championship game when the Eagles beat the Green Bay Packers. He played both ways. He was great linebacker.
Yeah, but that's not a wide receiver, Jack, that's running up and down the field. That's pretty much the guy in front of you. Listen, I think Travis Hunter, he's the best thing he does is defensive back, right? I mean, he's a better defensive back than he's a wide receiver. I'd play him like that. Maybe I'd throw him in wide receiver once in a while just to throw a bone his way. But I defensive back, we need a defensive back, and he's a good one. So.
Guys, tell me this. tennis players, Jokic, okay, Nadal, Federer, they're out there playing 3-4 hours. And they're not spot play. They're out there running back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. I mean,
There's one thing missing though, Jack. They're not getting contact from some other guy.
Yeah, there's nobody hit him.
That'll slow them down for sure.
No. Listen, I see your point, but you observe him carefully, and if you see the fatigue level is there, okay, he's getting tired. You take him out, absolutely, and you spot playing. You give him the opportunity to see what kind of workload he could handle when you draft him. Say, look, if you could play the 100% efficiency on every play, we'll keep you in there both ways every play. If you start getting tired, we spot play you.
Who was the last guy that did that? Woodson, right? Woodson was the last guy. I mean, how much did he play wide receiver when he went into the
very minimal?
It's the mentality of the coaches, and they change. Mindsets change with these coaches over and over on like what they can do. I mean, it's follow the leader. It's like I was saying before in baseball, 100 pitches, a pitch count. You know, everyone uses that as a guideline. It's like they pick something out of a hat, and everyone starts following it.
And the more you play, increases the chance of you getting injured.
Do we agree on this? If the draft ended today and the Raiders took Shedeur Sanders first, the Giants should take Travis Hunter with the next pick.
No doubt. No doubt.
Now, if it's the other way, if the Raiders throw a curveball and they take Travis Hunter 1, do the Giants take Shedeur Sanders number 2 overall?
No doubt. I think they're interchangeable in those top two positions.
Let me throw you one more curveball. Let's say it is highly doubtful. Manning, Arch Manning comes out, and he's available number 2 overall for the Giants. Do you grab him instead of Travis Hunter?
In 25?
Next season, yeah.
No. There's not enough film on him.
Oh, who cares? There's enough film on him.
No, it's not.
I respect what you're saying. What'd
you say,
yeah,
Matt?
No, let me tell you why I respect what you're saying. Because these talent evaluators,
there's some home movies available too.
The combines. They look at the combines, and the combines are basically a joke to evaluate like high picks with all the game film that you have on guys, and they make continuous mistakes. Did you see my guy Nate Wiggins from Clemson, the way he's been coming on for the Ravens? I told you he's going to be an elite cornerback, elite. He's trending that direction.
Doesn't Manning have like 2 years left of college still?
Yeah.
He's going to stay in college.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think the NIL has changed that and allowed kids to stay back. I said, because most times people want to get into the pros sooner because they want to start getting paid. But you can, if you have high level talent and you have opportunity, I think it helps both the player and the school or the program to say, okay, we can keep you back and allow you to stay. Or unfortunately, the bad side of it is that if a kid doesn't get exposure, they go to another team. I think
the transfer portal is a little out of hand. You know, if a kid wants
some regulation on it
because he wants a better college experience, whatever, but to just do it as a strategy, like hop around team to team, something about it.
We've seen a player, 3 years in a row getting a transfer portal and go to a different team. It's a little ridiculous. Free agency, but not like pro free agency.
They're going to start regulating it at some point.
I would hope so. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow, the Big Football Show. I'll be making an appearance on that too. And, of course, James, Jack, Sonia, Keith, and the Philly Sports Guy. Guys, have a great day. Christmas is coming. Go get your last-minute gifts. Okay, guys. Take care.